We're learning the first Sikha of Parshas Tisa and Chelek Chafalef on page 214. Today's shir is being learned to the Nishmas Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Rabbi Menashe Koltman. In Pasik B'vayim Aloyal Mayid Yirchatzu Mayim. When you enter into the Oyel Mayid, so the Kayin must wash his hands. This is washing the hands and feet actually before he comes into the Oyel Mayid. V'loya Musu, and he won't die. Or when you come close to the Mizbeach to serve Hashem, to bring a carbon on the Mizbeach. So Rashi brings the word from the pasuk and is mafanish, and he explains as follows: Lahaktir shachris uben arbayim. Coming into the Oyel Mayid is to bring the ketayres in the morning and in the afternoon. Ketayres, that is, goes together. Lahaktir shachris uben arbayim ketayres. Or the purpose of coming into the Oyel Mayid is lahazais midam par kohen Mashiach, to spray the blood of a carbon that a kohen Mashiach brings, which is in Parshas Vayikra when a kohen Mashiach sins and he has to bring a carbon. Useidei avodah zarah. Or also the goat brought as a carbon for someone that served avodah zarah also is a carbon that the blood is sprayed inside the Beis Hamikdash. That's the meaning of B'vayim Oyel Mayid, entering into the Oyel Mayid for any of these reasons. Was ist das schwer im Pasuk, was Rashi kommt verämpfen mit seinem Pirish? So what's the difficulty that Rashi is coming to address with what he says here? Learn Mefarshim, so the commentaries explain, as Rashi kommt bavaranen, or what Rashi is coming to clarify is, as Mazal meinen, as the Chi of Misa is oich of abire kanes. You shouldn't think that the Pasuk here says that if you come inside and you don't wash your hands and feet, that then one will die. That this would apply even if you enter, that is, empty-handed. Just enter, not with doing any avodah there. You enter, you didn't wash your hands and feet, and you did no avodah, that then there is a misa as well. This is seemingly what the pasuk is simply saying. B'vayam stam, when one enters, without specifying what he's doing there, el oyel mayid yirchatzu mayim, one must wash his hands. Nit wie beneged dem mizbeach, where the pasuk sagt befedish begishtam l'sharis. Unlike regarding the mizbeach, where the pasuk does clearly say coming to the mizbeach to serve Hashem. Was the fun is l'chayre muchach. So from this, it's seemingly clear as the etzem bia la'el mayid, just the entry into the Oyel Mayid, al filavenes is nitol l'sharis, even if there is nothing being done to serve Hashem there. Fadet richitzes yadayim v'raglayim. So it's demanded to wash your hands and feet. That's what the pasuk itself would indicate. So Rashi comes and clarifies as the b'vayim la'el mayid meint lahakter chulu or lahazes chulu. The entry into the Oyel Mayid that the pasuk speaks about here, it's if he's either bringing ketayres or spraying the blood of these karbanis mentioned inside the Oyel Mayid. The chiv misa is nava metutan aveda on rechitzis yadayim v'raglayim. Misa is only if a kayin does an aveda inside the Oyel Mayid without washing his hands and feet. That's the pshat in Rashi here. However, this pshat in Rashi is very difficult to accept. Weil Aleph number 1. So if so, the question becomes, on the other hand, from Vanet nemt take Rashi. So where does Rashi take from in the simple pshat of the words of the pasuk as miznit chayiv misa oifabire kanis, that one will not be chayiv misa entering without washing his hands and feet, just entering empty-handed, not doing anything. Heipech visis mashma from pashtus lashon hakosav kanal. The opposite of what it seems from the language of the pasuk as shayim b'vayam Oyel Mayid, that as soon as you enter into the Oyel Mayid, yirchatzu mayim v'lo yamusu, you must wash your hands in order not to die. Now, the Rebbe clarifies, in learning al pi derech halacha, when you learn this pasuk, according to halacha, is da svara. So there's room logically to say, as the vart l'shares, that when it says the word l'shares, so it says it in the pasuk regarding the mizbeach, but batzitzich oich of dem ane pasuk b'vayim Oyel Mayid. It's also relating to the beginning of the pasuk where it says b'vayim Oyel Mayid, one that enters the Oyel Mayid, and the pirish akasiv is. So the pshat in the pasuk is as follows: as dafke b'vayim Oyel Mayid l'sharis. Only when one enters into the Oyel Mayid to serve and does an aveda is mechayev b'rechitzis yadayim v'raglayim. Are you obligated to wash your hands and feet? So that's al pi halacha. However, now first the Rebbe will explain here an additional point, but the Rebbe will come back to the simple pshat of the pasuk that it doesn't seem to be this way. But before the Rebbe gets to that, in addition to the fact, as oib does vol gewen Rashi's hechrech, if this would be Rashi's proof, the fact that it says later in the pasuk l'shareis hatte gedacht meitig sein oich dem Wort l'shareis. So then Rashi, when he brings in this dibra maskal, the words from the pasuk, that is the source of what he's saying or what he's addressing in the pasuk, Rashi should have quoted the word l'shareis as well. For then, was Rashi bringt nor die Werte bevayam l'el mayed and as afile nit meise v'gaime. Rashi quotes these words bevayam l'el mayed, does not add v'gaime, that he's addressing the continuation of the pasuk. Is muchach, it's clear as blois from die Werte bevayam l'el mayed allein weismen as the bevayam is lahakta chulu. So it means that Rashi is saying it's these words that I'm quoting here from the pasuk that is teaching me that the chiyuv to wash your hands and feet is only when you come to bring ketayres or any other aveda that's mentioned that's done there. That's one point. As far as the dibur maskal of Rashi is concerned, which is very precise, is in addition to this, im pshute shel mikra, in the simple pshat of the pasuk, hat kein art nit zu sagen as der l'shares batzit sich auf dem vayel leil mayid. There's no room to say that the word l'shares that it says later on in the pasuk regarding the mizbeach also relates back to the words b'vayel leil mayid in the beginning of the pasuk. Weil demot wird gedacht stehen, because then it should say it all together. B'vayem leil mayid. Oy begishtam la mizbeach l'shares gaimer. Whether you come to the leil mayid or coming to the mizbeach to serve, yirchatzu mayim v'lo yamusu. And then afterwards it could conclude that you must wash your hands and you will not die. Wie bald as bevayim leil mayid verendigt sich mit die Wörter yirchatzu mayim v'lo yamusu. The Torah writes, entering into the leil mayid, wash your hands so that you don't die. Und erst nachdem then the pasuk begins as a separate thing. Or if you come to the mizbeach to serve, so the simple reading of the pasuk, the way it's divided, is clear as the word l'shares batzit sich nit zu der friede gewerte bevayim leil mayid. The l'shares at the end of the pasuk does not relate back to the bevayim leil mayid in the beginning of the pasuk. So the question remains, where does Rashi take from to say different than the simple pshat of the pasuk that b'vayam al mayid means that you have to wash your hands when you enter into the el mayid, even if you're not doing any aveda in the el mayid? Base, another question here is, if Rashi has to come and clarify that when it says in the pasuk entering into the el mayid, it doesn't refer to entering, that is empty-handed. This is something Rashi should have explained earlier on in last week's parsha. Beim tzivui in parshas tetzaveh, there the pasuk says, "V'hoyu the big day kuna al aren gaimer," that the kohen, Aaron HaKohen, that comes and serves in the Beis HaMikdash has to serve only wearing the special clothing of the kohenim. Was euch dort sagt der pasuk die zwei fallen. There the pasuk also says these 2 points. Bevayim alei mayid, oy begishtam lamizbeach l'shares b'kodesh. So speaking about entering into the el mayid or coming to the mizbeach to serve. But yet sagt dort nit Rashi as der bevayim alei mayid meint lahakta. There Rashi does not clarify like he does here that when it says bevayim alei mayid, it doesn't mean entering empty-handed. It refers to entering to do an aveda. Why doesn't Rashi clarify there in Parshas Tetzaveh? Only here in this pasuk does Rashi find it necessary to clarify. It's seemingly a squeeze to say, as we bal dort is the pasuk nit mafsik zwischen bevayim alei mayid und oy begishtam al mizbeach. There, by the begodim, there's no interruption in the pasuk. It says bevayim alei mayid oy begishtam al mizbeach, and it does not interrupt with something else like over here where it says in between yirchatzu mayim v'lo yamusu is azay pasha. So there it's so obvious as the l'shares b'kodesh b'siyum makasuv batzitzach oichef b'vayim alei mayid. So it's so clear that the l'shares at the end of the pasuk relates back also to the b'vayim that it says in the beginning of the pasuk because Rashi dafas garat mefarderstein. So therefore Rashi doesn't have to even clarify this because it's simple from the pasuk itself. So the Rebbe says this is a deichik. True, there's no break in between the 2 parts of the pasuk, but nevertheless, l'shares is in the end of the pasuk. So Rashi there should clarify that the l'shares of the end of the pasuk is related to the b'vayam in the beginning of the pasuk, and he doesn't. Only here does Rashi explain that when it says b'vayam, it means entering in order to serve, to do aveda there. So this is the two questions that there are on the pshat over here in this pasuk. There's no source for this in the pasuk seemingly, and for some reason Rashi is clarifying this dafke here and not earlier. Beis Nochmer, the Rebbe continues the question. He goes even further. It's impossible to say as Rashi is oisen zu shoyl sein dem kisel kedaitach as bevoyim al olayim meint euch abire kanas. That Rashi here is coming to take away the idea of learning the pasuk that bevoyim al olayim would mean entering empty-handed. While in derech hapshat, because when you learn the pasuk simply is a chiddush gadol beyoser as azol zayin abire kanas in oil moed, that there's even such a concept of entering into the oil moed empty-handed. Heipich betachlis from dibra kasa b'hoivet, the exact opposite of the Torah speaking about what's usual and common and normal. Why is that? Every child learning the pasuk knows as the oil moed is a mokim a kudush b'yoser. The oil moed is the holiest place. You don't just enter into the oil moed to take a stroll or something similar. Das is kishmai, as the name itself indicates, an oil, it's a tent, welch is a moed, which is designated for something specific. Which means, men geht dort herein, bloß, wenn der Eibishter bestimmt und heißt, dort hereingehen mit der Tachlis, you enter there when there's a designated thing that you have to accomplish, something that the Eibishter demands of you to do there. Can't just enter for no reason. Euch al pi halacha is da an Isser reinzugehen in Heichel and an Eifen von Bire Kanis. Even according to halacha, one is not allowed to enter into the oil moed just empty-handed. Und Rebbe lernen Mefarshim, so therefore Mefarshim here say, as Rashi kommt mit Mayed sein, nit a Bire Kanis tam, that when Rashi says that we're not speaking about a person that just enters empty-handed, we're not just talking about a usual case when you enter empty-handed, because you're not allowed. Not a Bire lo oil moed, when one enters because he wants to bow down to Hashem. For that purpose, to enter into the oil moed, to bow down to Hashem, that's allowed. And that's what Rashi is speaking about over here. However, learning the pasuk and understanding Chumash simply is nit mistave zum matemachen a knisa the oil moed l'shtachvos. It's not logical that there is a heter to enter into the oil moed just to bow down. One is not commanded to bow down. There's no need that this be done specifically inside the oil moed. It can be outside in the courtyard of the Mishkan, or the Azara as it's also called. So why would one enter into the oil moed altogether? So simply, there's no reason even to have to come and clarify that B'vayim al moed is not talking about someone that's empty, that's entering empty-handed. So since entering into the oil moed is only for the purpose of Aveda, is doch muvan as that tzivui B'vayim al moed yirchatzu is v'medav dartan Aveda. So it's self-understood that it's referring to entering with the purpose to do an Aveda in the Beis HaMikdash. Why would Rashi have to come and clarify this? So, to answer now, to give us a new approach, fresh understanding of what Rashi is saying here, that man das verstehen, behektim, atmiyah, in Lashon Rashi. So now the Rebbe focuses on the actual words that Rashi says here. Till now the Rebbe was focusing on what is Rashi saying, what is Rashi coming to answer in the pshat of the pasuk. But let's look at the actual words of Rashi itself. Oib Rashi will not madge sein as the pirish from Bevoyim al moed is a knisa tzeton di aveda b'fnem. If all Rashi is coming to clarify is that when the Torah says Bevoyim al moed, what it's saying is it's not just a plain entry, but entrance to do an aveda. So why wouldn't Rashi just say this very concisely with one word? Bevoyim al moed l'shares, to serve. The same word the pasuk itself uses. What is Rashi mefaret? Why does Rashi come and elaborate and specify lahak chulu, that this could be referring to ketayres, which is brought inside, or lahazais chulu, or various karbonis, which the blood has to be sprayed inside? Nita is the arzu midiyazaim velacha avedis veringatan el moed. Here's not the place to let us know the details of exactly which karbonis or avedis have to be done inside. Now, Rashi will bring the Gemais from the Avedis by Moed. Now, even if we will accept that, for whatever reason, Rashi does want to specify which are the Avedis that are done inside the El Moed. Isn't it move on? So, but nevertheless, it's still not understood the choice of words that Rashi says there. Aleph, Favaz, Brengte, Di, Dugma is Dafke. Why does he bring specifically these examples? Lahakter, bringing the ketayres, Lahazis chulu, or spraying the bloods. Unit for the andere sugi aved. There's other kinds of avedas, via riches lechem aponim, entering to prepare and set up the lechem aponim on the shulchan, or the ratavas vadlokas haneris, cleaning out and lighting the menorah. Ubefrat, as they stehen because of feel freer from lahakter chulu. Those things that are done inside the Moed are quoted in the pasuk way before the ketayres or the other karbanas are spoken about in the pasuk. The question is even further. These two examples of spraying blood from the Kohen Mashiach or the soil from Avodah Zarah. Here in Parshas Kisisa, we didn't learn about this yet. Erst später lernt man, we learn about this later, wegen Kohen Mashiach in Parshas Vayikra. We'll speak about it in Parshas Vayikra. Und Sira Avodah Zarah in Parshas Shlach. Kommt Rashi mechadish sein da in unser Pasuk. So Rashi here is coming and telling us a novelty in our Pasuk, as an da di Avedis, that you should know that there are these Avedis, und sagen, as they meint the Pasuk da. And Rashi is telling you here, when the Pasuk says, when you enter into the Olam Moed, you have to wash your hands and feet, this is the kind of Aveda that it's referring to. Those Avedis specifically that it's going to be mentioning later in Vayikra and Shlach. Why would Rashi do that? Gimel, another question is, by the Erste Dugme, is Rashi Moisef, Oich di Pratim lahakte Shachris u ben Arbayim. That Ketayris is brought in the morning and in the afternoon. Und sagt nicht Bekitzer lahakte Ketayris. And doesn't just say Bekitzer that it's bringing Ketayris inside. Is Tamua beYaiser. This is very difficult to understand. Da is sicher nicht der Ort zu mit dir sein, wie viel Mal a Tag die Avedas Ketayris wird getan. Here is definitely not the place to explain how many times a day the Aveda of Ketayris is done inside the Beis HaMikdash. Ubefrat, and especially as Mod Ersh gelernt, Besoif Parshas Tetzaveh, we just learned about this in the end of Parshas Tetzaveh, as Ketayres is Pamayim B'chol Yom, that Ketayres is brought twice a day. Und wenn Rashi sagt stam lahak the Ketayres, if Rashi would just simply say to bring the Ketayres, Veis Mishayin, as Mizmakte Shachris ben Abayim, we already know this, we just learned this before, that the Ketayres is brought in the morning and in the afternoon. So from the Ale, the Yukili Halashainis in Rashi, from all these things that the Rebbe points out here that we see, and the way Rashi brings all these various examples to what is done inside the Olam Moed is Mochach, it's clear, as Kavanas Rashi, that the intention of Rashi's Pirush here is nit zu madgish sein, it's not to come and emphasize, as B'vayim Olam Moed meint the Knisa L'Sharis, that it's referring to entering in order to serve, und if then get Rashi dugmais von Avedas bifnem. And therefore Rashi is giving you examples of the Aveda that's done inside. That doesn't make sense. As the Rebbe just pointed out, then the examples aren't necessary. These examples chosen are very interesting. Nor rather, as the din from bevoyam alel moed yirchatzu mayim goimer is dafke by di Avedas. That this halacha that you have to wash your hands bevoyam when you enter into the Olam Moed is applicable, or it's being said specifically regarding these Avedas. B'vayim Olam Moed, which is lahakte, shachris, or ben arbayim, ketayres, or lahazis, midam, par, koyin, ha-mashiach, asir, Avodah Zarah. The b'vayim applies by these specific karbanis or Avedas that Rashi brings here. It's not just some examples, but this is the meaning of B'vayam. B'vayam entering applies by these karbanis or Avedas that Rashi is mentioning here. It's exact. Rashi is mentioning this. This is what it is. What does that mean? What's the pshat in this? So to explain this, and here the Rabbi gives us a whole new understanding of the Rashi. The shaila in pasuk was Rashi kommt verenferen is the question in the pasuk that Rashi is coming to answer. Favos teilt the pasuk vanande die zwei inyanim bevoyim el Olam Moed begishtem el hamizbeach l'sharis gaimer. Why is the pasuk divide this into two completely different things? You enter into the Olam Moed, you have to wash your hands, and when you come to serve at the mizbeach, you have to wash his hands. Bis as the chiyuv rechitze berachatzu zusammen mit der azhara v'lo yamusu werden gesagt bei jedem Fall basunda. It's the Torah writes separately that you have to wash your hands so that you don't die. It writes it regarding bevoyam and regarding begishtom al hamizbeach. Why does the Torah have to write twice and divide it this way? L'chayre wollte der pasuk gedacht sei keilo sein zusammen. Seemingly, the pasuk should include them both together. Al derech wie steht beim din von Levishes big de kohana, similar to what it says. by the halacha quoted before, the fact that the kohanim have to wear their bigdei kahuna when they enter to do the avodah. It just says it all together. The oil mayid and serving by the mizbeach. Frat, and especially as demult, voltesiyam akasav l'sharis lahakter ishel Hashem given oichev b'vayim oil mayid, and then it would be understood that the l'sharis that we're talking here when a kohen comes to serve would be referring also to the first part of the pasuk. You don't have that break in between, which was the whole discussion before. So what's the pshat? This itself is actually what Rashi is coming to explain here, that b'vayim oil mayid is separate in the pasuk from b'gishtar l'mizbeach. The phone is Rashi Machriach. So from this division in the pasuk, Rashi proves as es is da a chiluk zwischen the chiyuv rechitze b'vayim oil mayid. It's a big difference between the obligation to wash the hands and feet when you enter, when it says in the pasuk b'vayim oil mayid, on der chiyuv b'gishtam olam mizbeach l'sharis gaimer, and the chiyuv to wash the hands when one comes to the mizbeach to serve. What's the difference? The rechitze begishtam olam mizbeach l'sharis, washing your hands when you come to the mizbeach to serve, is adin in klolus hagisha shesiyuma l'sharis, which is avodas hamizbeach. This is what demands washing the hands. The fact that you're coming to the mizbeach. What's the coming to the mizbeach? What's called coming to the mizbeach? When you come and serve by the mizbeach. Yedemol, nam is misharis ala mizbeach, is da abazunder chiyuv rechitze. And therefore, every time you come to serve by the mizbeach, there's another obligation again to wash your hands, because the klolos agisha consists of the aveda. So every time there's another aveda, it's a new gisha, it's a new coming to the mizbeach, and you have to wash your hands again. So basically, it's the aveda that demands the washing the hands. Is adin in the knisa. But when the Torah writes the words b'vayim alayil mayid, the Torah is saying that the very entry is what demands the washing of the hands. Yes, true, when you enter into the oil mayid, obviously it's an entrance with the purpose to do aveda there, because as the Rebbe pointed out already before, it's not a place just to take a stroll inside without any purpose. But nevertheless, the Torah does not say that it's the serving there that demands the washing of the hands. Und as bevayam is given yirchatzu, kann danach sein kama avodas. So the point here is that once you wash your hands before you enter, now inside you can do more than one avodah, and not every avodah demands to wash your hands separately. By the mizbeach, every avodah demands to wash your hands for it. That's the gisha consists of the avodah. So every avodah needs another washing of the hands. But then when you enter into the Beis HaMikdash, it's the entry that demands washing your hands, and therefore once you enter and you wash your hands, now you can do more than one avodah there. To say this in a little bit of a different way, the chiyuv rechitze da is nit adin in der avodah by Almighty. The rechitze, this that you have to wash your hands, the din over here does not come from this that the avodah demands a certain level of purity to wash your hands. As yet der avodah dar darf a bazundere rechitze. That every avodah done inside will separately you have to wash your hands for it. Nor this is adin in bevayim oil mayid. Rather, what demands the washing of the hands is the entrance into the oil mayid. In other words, Rabbi here is telling us that yes, the pshat in the pasuk is as it simply sounds. The bevayim oil mayid means that the entrance itself demands the washing of the hands. Of course, the pshat over here is that he's going to be doing an avodah inside. There is no such a thing as bi'erei konis. Rashi is not coming to negate that at all. But it's not the avodah, that each individual avodah that demands this. The entrance demands the washing the hands, and therefore, once you wash your hands, then now you can do as many avodas necessary inside. Now, the reason for the difference. Now, let's compare this to the other example that the Rebbe brought up before when it talks about the kohen wearing the bigdei kahuna when he comes to serve in the Beis HaMikdash. So, what's the reason for the difference? Zwischen dem din von Levishas bigdei kahuna. When it comes to the halacha of the kohen wearing his bigdei kahuna, which is the zelbe chiyuv v'hoyo al aren goymer in beide fallen. It's the same obligation in both cases mentioned in the pasuk, coming inside the oil mayid, coming to the mizbeach. It's written together. Und dem chiyuv rechitze, which is aber zunder sort chiyuv by jede von die zwei fallen. Over here, when it comes to washing the hands, it's a different type of obligation when you come to the mizbeach, and there it's the aveda that demands washing the hands. And when you enter inside the oil mayid, it's the entry that demands it. is moving bepashtus. This is something that's understood. If you understand, if you look at what we're talking about, it's self-understood. Big day kohone zenegeya zu der aveda gufa. Wearing the begodim, the garments of the kayin, this is something which is relevant for the actual aveda. The aveda muss getan werden, zayindig angetan in the begodim. The aveda in the Beis Hamikdash has to be done wearing these garments. Und der Ribber is in dem nicht shaykh zu machalik sein zwischen Oil Moed und Mizbeach. There's no room to make any distinction between the Oil Moed or the Mizbeach. Vibaltas by Beide is the Zelbe Chiyuv. By both of them, it's the exact same obligation. Men muss tragen the big de Kohone, when metut the Aveda. L'shar is Bakaidish. It's the Aveda that demands to wear these special and holy garments done with them. So it's the same thing, it's the Aveda. Here it's not something done or that you're wearing during the Aveda, but this is as a preparation for the Aveda that you do. One has to purify himself or sanctify himself before he begins doing his Aveda. Und der Fahr can und is in dem Faran achiluk. So therefore there can be and there is a difference here. When one enters into the Oil Mayid, it's a closed area, nor for Kainim, and it's designated only for Kainim to be there. And you only enter there for a very limited amount of time to do what has to be done there. Is genug the einzige rechitza. So it's enough one time to wash your hands before you enter. When you enter into this place, even when you're going to do more than one aveda. But when one is coming to the Mizbeach to serve Hashem, because the Mizbeach is in Chatzara Mishkan, the Mizbeach is situated outside in the courtyard of the Mishkan. Wo es gefinnen sich euch, Leviim, the Israelim, there's other Yidden there, not only the Kainim, but they bring the Karbanis they bring their Karbanis inside, and they remain there also to do the mitzvah of Smicha, leaning their hands on the carbon before it's going to be slaughtered. Over there, to have the proper purification for the Aveda that you're doing, here you have to have a separate purification, wash your hands separately for each Aveda that's done for the Mizbeach. So it's understood, it's a different type of achana. When it's a closed area that you're entering into and it's closed off from everybody else, so you wash your hands once before you enter into this special closed off area, or when it's an open, exposed area for everyone, so here you have to wash your hands before every Aveda. So now we come back to the details that Rashi says. Rashi says that the bevoyam is to be makted the ketores shachris and ben arbayim, and then Rashi brings the details of the carbon of the Parkayim Mashiach and the Seire Avodah Zarah. Apizes verstandig, mem loshen von Rashi. Now we understand Rashi's words. Bevoyam aloy lamoyed means lahakte shachris and ben arbayim ketores, to bring the ketores morning and afternoon. Kavanas Rashi is kapashtos l'shayne. Rashi means exactly as the simple words he says indicate. That chiv rechitze is tzvei molatog. Rashi is telling you that as far as entering into the Oil Mayid, the chiv to wash your hands will only be twice a day. When the kainim gein arayin bevoyam in Oil Mayid, it's the entry which demands to wash your hands. And when does a kain enter? A kain enters only twice a day. Lahakte shachris ubein arbayim ketayres, to bring the ketayres in the morning and in the afternoon. That's it. That's what Rashi is trying to say here. That it's not for every Aveda that you have to wash your hands, but it's the entry. And a Kayin enters on a usual basis into the Oil Mayit twice a day. Shachris and Ben Arbayim. V'hatam poshet. So the reason for this is very simple. Nachdem wie wir verendigt die Aveda in Oil Mayit b'shachris. After the Kayin concludes his Aveda in the Oil Mayit in the morning, is Dibra Kosev B'Hoive. The pasuk speaks about what usually happens. Get nareis from Oil Mayit. So the Kayin is done his Aveda, he leaves. Azoi as Ben Arbayim is habazunde b'vayim. So then in the afternoon, the Kayin has to come in again. At zweite Knisse to leave the Aveda from Ben Arbayim. Is to come in again to do the Aveda of the Ketayres in the afternoon. There's no reason the Kayin is going to remain there the entire day, and then in the afternoon he doesn't have to wash his hands again because there's no new entry. He probably leaves and then comes back in. Ubefrat, if we'll say, as was explained already before, as mentornit bleiben in Oil Mayid, is nit fanum mit l'sharas b'kodesh. There's no reason to just remain in the Oil Mayid and hang out there if you're not doing any Aveda there. So therefore Rashi tells you, on a usual basis, the Kayin would wash his hands once in the morning when he entered, and then he would leave, and he would wash his hands again once in the afternoon. Tam, for was sagt Rashi, kleibt euch dafke die Dugme von Ketayres. Why does Rashi bring the examples of the 2 times that a Kohen enters to do the Avodah in the morning and in the afternoon? And Rashi brings the example of Ketayres, while there are other Avodas that have to be done in the morning and the afternoon as well. So the answer is, weil Leute Rashi is Haktaras, Hakteres, the erste Avodah von Tag Ba'el Mayed. Rashi's opinion is that bringing the Ketayres inside in the Oyel Mayed is the first Aveda that's done when you enter in the morning. Ubemele is damos the erste Knisse, when es darf sein die Rechitze. So this is the first time you enter, when you have to wash your hands. Kedel kamansiv zayin, as the Rebbe will prove later, Rashi's opinion that the Ketayres is the first of all the Avedas done. After the Kohen washes his hands and he enters to bring the Ketayres, so now he doesn't have to wash again his hands for the other established Avedas or the other ordinary Avedas that were done every single day following the Ketayres. After the Ketayres, there were other Avedas done, as the Rebbe will specify soon. But it's all in that one entry that the Kohen entered into the Beis HaMikdash. So it's one entry. You don't have to wash your hands for every Aveda when you come into the Beis HaMikdash. So Rashi tells you wash your hands in the morning once for the Ketayres, and then you're there, and you can do the other Avedas as well. There's no separate entry into the Oyel Mayed. Now, the Rebbe clarifies, Avade, definitely, oiba zweite Kohen geht dort herein, oif tona zweite Avede, darfen haben Marechitze. If another Kohen enters, and he's doing a different Avede, he will have to wash his hands separately. Wie bald es bei ihm da, biel Oyel Mayed, since he's entering into the Oyel Mayed. Rashi will aber areis bringen dem Chiddush from Pasuk. Rashi over here wants you to understand what's the novelty in the way the Pasuk says this, regarding what is demanded to wash your hands when you enter into the Oyel Mayed. As the Rechil v'Rechitze is a Bevaya, that it's the very entry itself that demands the washing the hands. And over here, it's not the Aveda that's done that you serve, which demands to wash the hands. So what Rashi is telling you is, once the Kohen enter the first thing in the morning for the first Aveda, for the Ketayres, so it's this Kohen that will not need any other washing of his hands. Once he's there, he can do other Avedas inside the Beis HaMikdash or inside the Oyel Mayed. So now, based on this, as mitlahakte shachris ubein arbayim ketayres, when Rashi specifies that we're talking here about the ketayres brought in the morning and in the afternoon, why does Rashi have to mention both? One of the questions that Rebbe asked before is Rashi nid madgish. Rashi here is not coming to highlight as the rechitze is verbunden nor mit avedes ketayres, that the rechitze is for some reason connected only to this kind of aveda, the ketayres, the aveda of the ketayres. That's not the point there. Nor meint zu anweisen dem bestimmtem Zman from Bevayim Oyel Mayed. Rashi is just telling you what are the fixed times to enter on a daily basis into the Oyel Mayed. Once in the morning and once in the afternoon. So from this you understand that ba'ofen kavua get man rein in Oyel Mayed zweimal atag. On a regular basis, you enter twice a day. Shachas ben abayim lahak tekteres. And therefore, a kohen has to wash his hands twice a day when he goes into the Oyel Mayed, and or he could do many of this inside, but just twice a day he'll have to wash his hands. That's what Rashi is coming to say here. The Zman, the twice a day. But the details, the fact that it's specifically Ketayres, that's not the Diak in Rashi. Ketayres happens to be the first Aveda that's done in the morning, so therefore Rashi is talking about the Ketayres. So now this explains to us also the other karbanos that Rashi mentions here. Rashi is the noch meisef oi lahazais midam par kohen hamashiach osir avedazara, spraying the blood for the kohen Mashiach or for a soil brought for avedazara. Valdi avedis b'fnim gein nitarein in a cloud from the avedis hakvois. Rashi here is bringing you these two avedis that do not go into the regular, usual avedis that are done in the Beis HaMikdash every single day. So therefore, what Rashi is doing is as follows. Das heißt, Rashi is mefaret the zwei verschiedene oifanim in Bevayim Oyel Mayed. Rashi is telling you there are two different types of avedis that bring a person, or a kohen that is, to enter into the Oyel Mayed. Aleph, the kavua de geknise b'chol yom v'yom. There is the established entry, the regular entry that there is every single day. Bevayim goymet lahak de shachris, and then v'chol lahemshach hakavua shalah, and all the other details that follows, and the Rebbe will get into some more details soon. So, but it begins with the ketayres, uben arbayim ketayres, and then the ketayres is brought in the afternoon. That's the regular avodah on a daily basis. And Beis, Rashi tells you, there's another type of bevayim. When der bevayim is b'chleitzatan an inyam miyuchad. When the kohen enters and he's entering for something special, for something unusual, it's not established, it's not daily. Bevayim goyim lahazle is midam par kohen amashiach v'sir avodah zarah. So Rashi is not bringing all the other things that the Rebbe brought before, which are lechem upon him and so on. Those are things that are part of the regular avodah that was done together with when he came in for the ketayres. And you don't have to wash your hands another time for those things. But over here, Rashi wants to tell you, yes, true, on a daily basis, the kohen had to wash his hands twice for the bevayim. There's the regular bevayim on a daily basis, but there could be another bevayim, which a kohen has to enter for a special carbon that was being brought on that day. That's why Rashi brings these kind of avodas over here. Okay, so this is the conclusion of the Rebbe's explanation of the Rashi. It's very bediuk what Rashi says. It's really sort of going the exact opposite of the way the Mefarshim's approach here was, that Rashi is coming to say that the bevayim is not like the simple pshat that it sounds like, that it's just the entry that you have to wash your hands for, but rather that even the bevayim is also only l'sharis. The Rebbe says, no, punkt verkehrt. The fact that the Torah divides it, by the Mizbeach it says l'sharis, by the bevayim it does not say l'sharis. The bevayim here, entering into the oil mayit in itself demands to wash your hands. And once you enter, you can do as many avodas as you want over there. Okay, in Order 30, the Rebbe points out that actually, according to Rashi, even for a bi'er konis without kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, you would also be chayiv for that. Take a look in Order 30, very interesting. The exact opposite of what all the Mefarshim say. The Rebbe is taking the simple pshat of the pasuk. Now, the Rebbe will come back to focus on ketayres. Ketayres, the Rebbe says, according to Rashi, is the very first avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. So when we talk about entry, what's the entry in the very first thing for? Ketayres. So in Yanim Neflaim B'Pirish Rashi Zeh Al Derech HaHalacha. There are wondrous things we can take out of this Rashi, expression that the Shalach Kodesh says, that is according to halacha. By the avodah from Aaron, B'Nigeya Dinedes HaMenorah. When it comes to the avodah of Aaron regarding the menorah, Zok the pasuk b'seif pashas tetzavet tzvei l'shainis. The pasuk there says two different expressions. By the avodah b'boiker, in the avodah in the morning, it states the lashon be'tivoi esanedes, that you enter to clean out the menorah. And by bein arbayim, in the afternoon it says ba'ha'alois arein esanedes, that Aaron HaKohen will light the menorah. As you do, the plukke zwischen Rashi mit dem Rambam and dem Pirish von Atovas Hanedes. So it's well known that there's an argument between Rashi and the Rambam regarding what it means when it says that in the morning there was Hatovas Hanedes. What does the word Hatova mean? The Rambam learned, the Rambam's opinion is as Atlokas Hanedes, he Hatovasam. When you light the menorah, that is what the Torah means by Hatovasam. It's cleaning out and lighting it. Und le Fishel hat man angezündet die Menorah zweimal am Tag, bei Boiker und ben Arbayim. So according to the Rambam, the menorah was lit twice a day, in the morning and in the afternoon. Rashi is over mefarish the word ba'tivai. What does ba'tivai mean? Loshen nikoi habezichen shal menorah. It's cleaning out the lamps of the menorah. Medashen apsilois shenisserfu balayla, taking out the ashes or the leftover wicks that were burnt at night. Only shitasai, so according to Rashi's opinion, is that Lakas HaMenorah given ein molatag ben arba'im. The menorah was lit only once a day in the afternoon. So now Pizez move on as Rashi Geta l'shitasai. So from this we understand that what Rashi says here, that the first avodah done in the morning is the ketayres. Rashi is following his opinion. In derech hapshat, leiksich, when you learn the pasuk simply, it's logical to say as the ikir avodah in their menorah is adlokas hanedes. What's the primary use and the purpose of the menorah? It's the avodah that is done to light the menorah. But just to clean out the lamps, on dishun ha-menorah hatave, taking out the wicks and the ashes, is nitmer v'ha'achana. That's not an avodah with the menorah. That's just a preparation to be able to light it. If zugreiten die Nedes, man soll sie danach keine matlig sein ben arba'im, to prepare it, to light it in the afternoon. Und wie es ist euch mashma bepashtus von den Psukim, was reden wegen der menorah, as it seems from the Psukim when it speaks about the menorah, as der Inyan von Allah as hanedah steht, kama v'kama pamim. The mitzvah of lighting the menorah, it says in the pasuk more than once. Mashenken at tavis hanedes, when it speaks about cleaning out the lamps, verter mond aleph blois einmal. This is only mentioned once in the end of Parshas Tetzaveh. On Beis nit zwischen die Psukim, was reden b'inyan ha-menorah. It's not brought amongst the Psukim that speak about the menorah itself, nor b'derech agav. It's only brought as a side point in the parsha from Mizbeach HaKetores, where it speaks about the building of the Mizbeach and what the Mizbeach HaKetores is meant for the Ketores. So onzeichen in dem Zman von HaKetores HaKetores baboike. And there the pasuk is only coming to tell you the timing of when the Ketores is brought, which is be'tivoi esaneidos yaktirena. When you come to clean out the lamps, then you bring the Ketores as well. So now, Mahai, time is Dr. Rashi da. So therefore, Rashi is telling you over here, what's the first Aveda done in the morning? As the Bevayam, Eloel Mayid, is given lahakter cholo. The first Aveda that the Kohen enters for is to bring the Ketores. Valaktaras Hakteres is l'shitasai the Iker ha'aveda by Mayid b'shachris. Because when you come in the morning into the Beis HaMikdash, what's the main Aveda done there? It's the Aveda of the Ketores. That's the Aveda done in the morning. That's a real Aveda. That Araingem b'shachris is be'ikir tzalib Ketores. When the Kohen enters, he's entering primarily for the Aveda, which is Ketores. Und nit tzalib der inyan from ba'tiv esaneres. And he's not entering just to clean out the lambs. Was is nit ken Aveda for sich, which is not even an Aveda for itself. Nor blaze a hechsher to that loke ben arbaim. It's only a preparation for the lighting of the menorah in the afternoon. So it doesn't really have the same level of Aveda as a real Aveda done with the Mizbeach. This is an Aveda which is only a hechsher. Und wie bald das lahakte Ketores ist Rashi. Und wie bald das mit lahakte Ketores ist Rashi nicht äußern zu sagen, als der Rechitze ist zu lieb der Aveda dafke. So now, going back to the point that we explained before, when Rashi says that the Kohen enters and he has to wash his hands because he's going to be doing the Ketores, so Rashi is not coming to say that the purpose of the washing of the hands is only for this Aveda of Ketores. Nor blois to anweisen dem Zman from Bevayim, Kanal Siva, but rather Rashi is coming to say that it's the very entry that requires washing the hands. And Rashi is coming to tell you when is the entrance, what is the time of the entrance on a regular day entering into the Beis HaMikdash, into the Oil Mayid. Und benigei dem Bevayim von Shachris, muss Rashi sagen lahakte Ketores. So when it comes to entering in the morning, so Rashi tells you what is the purpose for the Kohen entering? For the Ketores. Varam das is the erste Aveda kanal, because according to Rashi, this is the first Aveda, Ketores. It comes before the cleaning out of the Neides, because the Neides, that's just a hechsher. That's not the real Aveda. The first Aveda to enter is the Ketores. The Riber nutzt euch haktaras hakteres und nicht halas haneres als simen of the Mevayim from Ben Arbaim. So therefore, even when it comes in the afternoon, now in the afternoon, there is another Aveda besides the Ketores. There's the Ketores, and there's the Neides. But nevertheless, because regarding the entry in the morning, the Ketores is really the only real Aveda. So there Rashi says that the Bevayim is for the Ketores. So in the afternoon, Rashi also mentions the Ketores. Varam aktaras akteres und Allahs haneres werden getan in demselben Zman besmiches elazeh. Because they're really done at the same time, right? One together with the other. Uvahales haneres ben arbaim yaktirena. When you light the menorah, then you should bring the Ketores. So therefore, once regarding the morning, Rashi says that the entry is for the Ketores. So regarding the afternoon, Rashi also says that the entry is for the Ketores. Now here, the Rebbe takes us a step further. Rashi's opinion regarding the timing, the exact timing of the Ketores, both in the morning and the afternoon. So for Ula Yesh Laimar, it's possible to say, as das was Rashi sagt, Lahakter, Shachris, Ben Abayim Ketores, that the Kohen is entering morning and afternoon to bring the Ketores. Is val Rashi nemton, because Rashi's opinion is, as the Pirish from Deep Sukkim, Behetivoi Esaneres Yaktirena, that when the Kohen cleans out the menorah, he should bring the Ketores. On the other pasuk, which speaks about the afternoon, Uvahalois Haneres Ben Arbayim, when he lights the menorah in the afternoon, Yaktirena, he should bring Ketores, is nit, it does not mean, as the Yaktirena kommt nach dem Bativai, Ubahalois, that the Ketores is after you light the menorah, or after you clean out the menorah, nor as the Yaktirena darf getan werden in dem Zman von Atove Vadloke. What the pasuk is saying is that the Ketores is brought at the same time when you're coming to light or clean out the menorah. Aber the Yaktare kommt früher. But the Ketores is actually brought before. Und sie ist der erste Aveda, Saiba Beike und Saiba Ben Arbaim. It is actually the very first Aveda that's done both in the morning and in the afternoon. Where does Rashi take this from? Und die Hachachayiv dem, ubehemshich lahanal, b'shittas Rashi. The proof of this, and this is following the opinion of Rashi, shittas Rashi, that we brought before, that the menorah was only lit in the afternoon and not in the morning. Vibal, das hatovis haneris is blois aleph an inyan von nikui. Since cleaning out the menorah is just a matter of cleaning out. Beis, was is blois a hachane v'hechshet zu the adloka shel ben arbayim. And it's only a preparation for a later Aveda, which is going to be done in the afternoon. And so simply you should say, as frier hat Aaron getan die Aveda ikris shel shachris haktaris haktaris. So first Aaron HaKohen tended to the actual Aveda that's relevant for now, to bring the ketairis. Haktaris haktaris. Und erst danach hat Meitav gewähnt die Neres beturachane zu der adloka shel ben arbayim. And only later does he clean out the menorah, which is only a cleaning out, and as a preparation for something which is relevant later in the afternoon. So that's logical regarding the morning, that the ketairis is the first, and then comes the cleaning out of the menorah. Umizeh, and from this we understand, as oich der pasik uvahalis arnes haneres ben abayim yaktirena v'shteit gleich nach dem. So the order in this pasuk, when it says uvahalis regarding the afternoon, when it says yaktirena, so it says it right after the previous pasuk where it says behetiva is haneres yaktirena. And regarding the morning, the yaktirena means that the yaktirena is first. So over here in this pasuk as well, meint euch zum makdim sein die ketores farat lokas haneres. What the pasuk is saying is, when you come to light the menorah, first bring ketores. So therefore, when Rashi talks about the bevayam both in the morning and in the afternoon was actually for the ketores. That was the first Aveda done. And then the Kohen does all the Avedas following that. Once he's inside, and he doesn't have to wash his hands again. Now the Rebbe comes to explain from this Rashi, from Yena, Shal Teire, Shebepirish Rashi. We can take out from this Rashi the wine of Teire, deeper chassidus that we can see over here, according to this Rashi. So the Rebbe explained to us that according to Rashi, the pasuk is dividing two different categories in this mitzvah of washing your hands. And we will see now on a deeper level what is the difference between these two categories. So let's first understand what is the significance of washing the hands and feet before you do the Aveda. Rechitzas yadayim v'raglayim is in Yona. What's the point of washing your hands and feet before you enter or before you do Aveda? Before you begin to do your Aveda in a holy place, you first have to wash yourself. Ruchni speaking, one has to rid himself from any negativity that he has in himself. Und in dem ist Chilek zwischen der Rechitze Eider, man tut die Aveda auf Mizbeach hachitzen. So here comes the distinction that the pasuk says. There's a difference between the Aveda, washing yourself before the Aveda you do on the Mizbeach, which is on the outside in the courtyard. And the Rechitze bevayam el mayid. And when you wash yourself before you enter into the oil mayid, which is lahak the ketayres, bringing the ketayres of the Mizbeach hapnimi on the inner Mizbeach. What's the difference? The chiluk zwischen Mizbeach hachitzen and Mizbeach hapnimi is. The difference between the outside and the inside Mizbeach, as it's explained in Chassidus, is as follows. Mizbeach hachitzen is tzalib avodas hakarbanis. The outside Mizbeach is designated for all the karbanis which are brought on it. Was das ist der Inyan from birurim. This is the Aveda of taking physical animals in the world, refining them and elevating them and bringing them on the Mizbeach. It gets elevated to holiness. Which is not the case with the inside Mizbeach, is to leave Avedas HaKetayres. This is the Aveda of Ketayres. Was in Yana is nit birurim. The focus here is not refining from the physical things in the world, nor hiskashrus. It means connection. Meloshin bechad ketira is katarna. Like in Aramaic, the word ketayres means I'm tied with one knot to Hashem. Meisav zayin in the hiskashrus sumeibishin, entering to a place to enhance and add to your level of connection to Hashem. Completely different type of Aveda. This distinction also applies to the inner and outer Mizbeach that exists in the heart of every single Yid. Mizbeach hachitzen is bechinas chitzenius alev. The outer Mizbeach refers to the external part of the heart of a Yid. Und dort is shayach und es darf sein avodas habirurim. The external part of a person's heart is the emotions that get affected by the things that he understands, the seichel and the midas that interact with each other, and the things that you get nispal from, things that you get excited about, the relation that a person has to people or things around him, and he has to use that to elevate and that it should be positive emotions and to elevate it all to Hashem. That's Avodas Habirudim. That's the external part of a person's heart. But then you have the inner Mizbeach, is Bechinas Pnimi Yisalev. That's the deepest point in the Yid's heart. There's no concept of relating to anything outside of him to refine and elevate. Mitzat Pnimi Yisalev, in the inside point of a Yid's heart, is the Avede zu verbinden sich tiefer mit dem Eibishten. That's finding the depth of your connection to Hashem, unrelated to anything outside. Adarabah, to find that deep connection to Hashem where nothing else matters other than you and the connection to Hashem. B'chat ketirias katarna, completely different type of Avede. So therefore, now coming back to the two different types of washings of the hand. There's a different type of Aveda here. When someone is occupied with this kind of Aveda, with the external part of his heart, when it's related to the matters in the world, there's place for existence of evil. This is something that a person has to be constantly vigilant of and careful not to fall into the negativity of the world. So therefore, every time you're coming to serve Hashem in this kind of environment where you're related with things in the world, you're always going to have to again purify yourself and be sure that you're coming purely to serve Hashem. But when a Yid is on the level that he serves Hashem with the innermost point in his heart, is a so he's already removed of matters in the world. Und der Fahr ist für ihn genug die ein Rechitze, was hat gehabt, ist rein in der Aveda. So it's enough that he washes himself only once before he enters to do this kind of Aveda, and he doesn't have to constantly wash himself again and again. Nor, dabei muss man bewarnen, that is. But here Rashi comes and clarifies, as when es kommt zu lahazos midam par kohen HaMashiach asir Aveda Zareh, that there is some times where you're going to have to wash your hands even more than that one time in the morning or one time in the afternoon, when you have to spray the blood of the kohen or from Aveda Zareh, darf man haben a besondere Rechitze. So for this entry, you are going to have to wash your hands again. When we're speaking about entering in order to bring ketayres, which expresses the connection, the deep connection Yid has to Hashem, is genug the einzige rechitze. So for that, it's enough that one rechitze, that once washing your hands before you enter, and you're not on a level where you have to constantly wash your hands from the negativity that you're involved in. But when this Kayin has to bring about an atonement for something which is negative, true, not his own negativity, but he's bringing a carbon for a Kayin or for someone that served Avodah Zarah, and he has to bring a carbon for something which is negative, here he does have to wash his hands again. Now, but the Rabbi clarifies, yes, it is true, as mitzad atzmai is an amatze von Avdala von Welt Bechlal, that he is generally removed from the world, unra befragt, and specifically of anything evil in the world. But nevertheless, if he has to do an Aveda, which consists of occupying himself to wash off a negativity, a certain kapara of someone, so you do need an extra care that this should not pull you down from the level that you're on. So therefore, so this Aveda, to spray this blood of these karbonis which are connected to an Aveda, so you have to wash your hands separately again. And then, after you wash your hands and you bring the carbon, so this is the Lashon Rashi says regarding the Par Kayin HaMashiach. Rashi learns there from the Lashon of the Pasuk that this carbon brings peace into the entire world, and what this hints to is that there's a Yerida Gedolei Yaiser, that there was a great descent here where the Kayin Mashiach sins, and then Tikuna, the rectification for this is Aliyah Gedolei Yaiser. It even brings a greater Aliyah that it brings peace to the entire world. By Sirei Avodah Zarah, and then the carbon brought for a person that served Avodah Zarah, a chatos v'lachakum nach der avla, a chatos that's brought after the, that's a mistake. A chatos that comes after the oila, that is, after a person brings a carbon oila. That's the halacha there by this Avodah Zarah, that you have to first bring a carbon oila. and then you bring a chatas afterwards, which is an unusual order. Usually the chatas come first, and then the Eilah. So over here we're talking about a chatas that will be even higher than an Eilah. Maisif of the Eilah, this chatas is actually even higher and adding to the Eilah. And the Rabbi brings in the Ha'ara, Eilah is like a gift that comes to appease Hashem even after there's already a kapara. So this is a chatas that comes following that, which means that it's even higher than an Eilah, and this is the special Aveda where the blood is sprayed inside the Oil Mayit.